Welcome back, everyone. It's the lawyer you know, and today we're giving a case update on the Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell case. Every week something seems to happen in this case, and this last week is no exception. So we're going to get into what happened at the change of venue hearing, where Chad Daybell's lawyers asked to move this trial out of the county in which it happened, and what the judge's decision was. But we're also going to talk about, at the end of the video, a call from Lori Vallow to the insurance company of her prior husband, who was apparently killed by her brother in this convoluted story, as she tried to get her hands on those insurance proceeds as his beneficiary. And we'll talk about what the outcome of that was. It seems like that's such a prevalent thing in all these high profile cases, whether we're talking about Murdaugh, we're talking about Lori Vallow, we're talking about Chad Daybell himself, trying to get those life insurance proceeds on a case you may have had something to do with the death involved in that policy payment. So we're going to talk about all of that today. We're going to talk about what insurance companies do to protect themselves against fraud like that. But if you like this kind of content, please subscribe to our page. And if you like Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell specifically, make sure you like this video, because that's how we determine where we put our time and what videos we do. If you go search on our page, you'll see a bunch of different high profile cases that we break down. So go watch the ones you like and like the videos on the cases that you're interested in, so we can put more time and content behind those cases. Additionally, for this case, there are all sorts of interviews that are popping up now on YouTube, full-length interviews, some of them hours long. So instead of just picking which ones we find most interesting, comment in the comments below which interview you would like us to break down, if any at all, out of these. These are just some of the ones that I've seen pop up on YouTube recently. Alex Cox, Lori Vallow's brother I just mentioned, who allegedly murdered her first husband, or her previous husband, I should say. Tylee Ryan, one of the children murdered that is under investigation and being charged to Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. Melanie Gibb, one of Lori's best friends. Lori Vallow herself, or Jason Moe, a retired Phoenix police officer. So all these interviews are coming out. Some of them are hours long, some of them are a little bit shorter. Which ones interest you guys? Which ones do you want me to break down? Let me know in the comments, and let me know if you have any specific questions about those interviews. But for now, let's talk change of venue in Chad Daybell's case. His lawyers filed the motion that they need to change this venue because in this county, in eastern Idaho, it's impossible to find an unbiased jury. It's impossible to find a jury that hasn't made up their mind, mostly because of the media attention. Over 250 articles just posted by the East Idaho News with inflammatory things like family reacts to Chad Daybell's not guilty plea. He's a liar, he's a liar. And he referenced all sorts of articles and all sorts of news clippings and videos and media pointing to Chad Daybell's guilt, how they don't believe him, how minds are already made up, and how the media is slanted and pointing in just one direction, which shows in this small part of the state of the country, it's impossible to find a jury that would not be unbiased and that would be fair to Chad Daybell. It's a pretty good argument when you talk about this case. We've talked about other cases where venue wasn't changed, usually in much bigger cities or much bigger states with a higher population than little old East Idaho, which is what we're dealing with here. So Chad Daybell's attorneys made those arguments. The prosecutors made objections to change of venue and gave other suggestions of what we could do. For instance, you could bring a jury in from a different county and try it in this county. You could also sequester the jury so they don't have any media influence on them at all through the duration of this trial. But when it came down to it, the judge made the decision to grant the defendant's motion, changing the venue of Chad Daybell's case to Ada County, Idaho. And the reason he gave is that it's more appropriate based on multiple factors, including population base from which to draw jurors, courthouse facilities and staffing, courtroom availability for a high-profile multi-week case, the ability to house and transport defendants, control of citizens and media attendance, and jury security and accommodations during trial. So it seems like this judge didn't just make the decision based on fairness, but also on how the courthouses would be able to house and maintain a media frenzy, a high-profile case with a lot of people wanting to come and watch and a lot of media attention and reporters wanting to come in and see the testimony and see the lawyers and see the defendants and report on it because the country is watching. So it seems like a lot of factors came into play, not just how fair this would be to Chad Daybell. And again, when we compare this to other cases like Derek Chauvin, for instance, or R. Kelly, that was not going to happen because those were in bigger cities, bigger states, bigger courthouses that may not have had those same concerns. Additionally, this judge, maybe more than some of the other judges, is protecting against an appellate issue. because we don't want to have an appellate issue, which is why this is such a big deal in changing venue. If he denied it, this could be an appellate issue for Daybell and his lawyers. But now that he's granted it, he is saying, I am giving Chad Daybell every opportunity for a fair trial, to find a fair jury, to find an unbiased jury that has not already convicted them in their minds before they step into this courthouse. Now, because that may seem a little unfair and a little bit dismissive of Fremont County, which is where this case was held before, he did say in his order that he does believe the jurors in Fremont County could absolutely be fair and unbiased, but for these extenuating circumstances in this case, he would have left it in Fremont County. But because of this case specifically and all the circumstances surrounding it, that's why he decided to move it. So he wanted to tip his cap a little bit to Fremont and not offend them and not dismiss them, since in fact, that's where he is an elected official, an elected judge. So in this case, he also said that he believes he should remain the presiding judge on this case. That's not unusual. He wants to keep it. It's a high-profile case. It's a big deal. It's something that is a stepping stone for his career. Not that he's ever going to admit that or say that that's the reason he's staying on it, but it does make sense for him to stay on this case because he knows about this case. He's dealt with the parties. He's dealt with the lawyers. He's already looked at a lot of the motions, and we are supposedly getting close to trial. We were supposed to be going to trial next month on Chad Daybell. We already have these competency issues for Lori Vallow that he's been presiding over, so it makes sense for him to stay on this case as the presiding judge, as to not waste time, waste judicial economy, and have some other judge try to come on, put their arms around this case and tackle the issues, learn the personality clashes between the lawyers that he's been presiding over, as it has been contentious throughout the entirety of this case, and it was throughout this motion as well. Just in the beginning of the motion, they were arguing about whether or not this should be a sealed motion or whether it should be a public motion for everybody to hear. And even that argument couldn't go without the two lawyers interrupting themselves. John Pryor and Wood, the prosecutor and the defense attorney in this case, kept interrupting each other, arguing with each other just at the beginning of the hearing before any of the actual substantive arguments were made. So I think it makes sense for this judge to stay on and preside on this case because he is the one most familiar with it. He's already gotten a lot of the arguments and evidence for future hearings that haven't even happened yet, and especially when it comes to competency issues with Vallow and with trials, with Daybell's upcoming trial, which the date has not been set yet. We all know it got continued from November. But I think it makes sense for him to stay on as the presiding judge. Let me know what you think. Do you think he just wants it for the publicity, or do you think it's actually the best idea for him to stay on as the presiding judge? Let me know in the comments. We're also going to keep an eye on how this change of venue affects Lori Vallow's case, because now that we know Chad Daybell's moving to Ada County, if Lori Vallow is still not competent by the time Chad Daybell gets tried, if he's not guilty in Ada County, you better believe Lori Vallow is going to want to go there. If he is guilty, she's going to have the decision. Does she still want to change venue to Ada County? Does she want to stay in Fremont? Or does she perhaps want to ask for a change of venue to a different county than Fremont or Ada? A lot of things up in the air, a lot of things in play in this case with multiple defendants and all sorts of moving parts. But let's take a second to transition now to this life insurance policy for Charles Vallow, Lori Vallow's prior husband to Chad Daybell. A lot of names, a lot of husbands, a lot of deaths are going on in this case, so sometimes it's hard to keep track. But what we know is Lori Vallow called the life insurance company trying to see if she could get that payment just days after Charles Vallow's death. And there are other interviews how she said, we didn't like each other, I wanted a divorce, I wanted out, he didn't want a divorce. And we may think that her brother, Alex Cobb, is the one that committed the murder. So with all that going on, we have a recording of her calling that life insurance company. So let's talk about it here as we react to this recording.
Claims Department, this is Robin. May I have the policy number?
Sure. It is...
Are you calling in reference to a death claim?
Yes.
So the first question that's important, are you calling in reference to a death claim? Yes. So that is why she is calling.
Okay, one moment, please. May I have the name of the insured?
L. Charles Vallow.
And who am I speaking with?
This is Lori Vallow.
And your relationship to the insured?
He's my husband.
So Lori Vallow calls, says it's about a death. She says Charles Vallow is the person who is the insured. And who is she? What is her relationship to him? She is his wife. That is the most common beneficiary in any life insurance case, is the wife or the husband, the spouse, or a child. So her saying that she's his wife and that he's passed away is a very common theme to follow for the person that's answering the phone call. She's got no reason to believe there's any foul play going on, so it makes sense to the person answering the call right now. And this is all important because insurance companies have what's called an incontestability clause, which gives them some time to investigate life insurance claims to make sure there's no foul play. So you don't want to raise any red flags if you're Lori Vallow. You don't want to make her think something crazy has happened or there's some shadiness around this death. You just want her to cut you the life insurance check and you can move on with your life if you're Lori Vallow in this situation. But let's hear how the rest of the call goes.
Okay, one moment. Okay, ma'am, I'm just going to need to ask you a few questions so that I can open the claim, and then I can go over the claim procedure with you and answer any questions that you may have afterwards.
That would be great.
Okay, first of all, may I have your daytime phone number, please?
Sure. It's
And what was the date of Mr. Vallow's passing?
July 11th.
And what was the cause of his passing?
Well, he was shot.
So now you'll hear her start to get kind of squirrely, right? What was the cause of his passing? Well, he was shot. Almost like she didn't want to say it, right? But there are more details she's going to give now, and let me know what you think of these details as she's talking to the life insurance. I don't know if it's an agent or if it's just somebody who answers the phones that helps open up claims when life insurance policy claims are made.
Okay.
So I don't know how I want to put that.
Okay. All right. And I hate to ask, but is it?
Yeah,
you can just say yes or no. Was it a homicide?
No, it was an accident.
An accident. Okay.
Okay, so she says, I don't know how to say this. And then the person talking to her on the line says, I'm sorry, I have to ask. You can just answer yes or no. Was it a homicide? Well, we all know, yes, it's a homicide. Lori Vallow very quickly says, no, it was an accident. So how would she know it was an accident, right? If it involved her brother. Like, we don't know what's going on at this point. But Lori Vallow very clearly says, no, it was not a homicide because she doesn't want any red flags raised, and we'll talk about what those may be at the end of this call, to somehow come in the way of her making her claim for this insurance policy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what state did he pass away in?
Arizona.
Okay. Just bear with me for one moment. I just need to pull up a few other things. Okay. Are you aware of who the primary beneficiary of the policy is?
It's me.
Are you aware who the primary beneficiary of the policy is? It's me. That's what she says, right? But now we know that Charles Vallow was starting to get a little bit nervous and called another family member and made her the primary beneficiary of this policy without Lori Vallow even knowing. And even the sister pushed back and said, why don't you make it the kids? And he says, I'm worried about what she's going to do. Because if it goes to the kids, Lori could still have some control over that as their guardian if he passes. If nobody was able to prove that she had anything to do with his murder, which is kind of where we're getting now, hindsight's 20/20. But at the time, he changes and makes another family member the sole beneficiary. Lori Vallow doesn't know that at this point, which again, that's why this call is damning. And if anything happens with the murder investigation of Charles Vallow, or that Lori Vallow was involved at all with her brother, this is going to be a key piece of evidence because it absolutely gives her motive. She thought she was the primary beneficiary, and just days after his death, she calls, says he was shot, and says it was not a homicide. All of that puts you into the mind of a defendant in a murder conspiracy.
Okay. And may I have your, I'm sorry, one moment. My computer just went away for a second. Okay. Okay, ma'am. That is all the information I need to open the claim. What we will do now is review the policy and the file to confirm the beneficiary information and determine the claim requirements that we will need to settle this particular claim. Once we have completed our review, we will prepare a claim packet to send to the named beneficiary once that has been confirmed. And the claim packet can either be mailed or emailed or faxed. How would you like to receive a correspondence?
Email would be great.
Okay, and what is your email address? .com. Okay. All right, so you should receive an email from our office within the next 3 to 5 business days or sooner. It will have the instructions listed. Once you receive the information, if you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to give our office a call. and then we can go from there. Okay, is there anything I can help you with at this time?
That's it, I think.
So that's it, I think, was a little more chipper than the beginning of the conversation, but I left all the procedures that are going to happen after this call in there so you could listen. It's not over. They didn't say we're sending you a check. They said we're opening the claim. It's going to be about 3 to 5 business days before we call you. We're going to investigate what we need to do and what other information we need to pay this claim. We're going to confirm the beneficiary, which they ended up doing, and it was confirmed not Lori Vallow, right? So all of this stuff happens because insurance companies have outs, especially in life insurance. If somebody that is a beneficiary is accused of or convicted of murdering the insured, they can deny that claim. And I said accused or convicted because there have been cases where somebody's accused of murdering the insured and they're the primary beneficiary. They go to trial, the state prosecutes them, and there's a not guilty verdict. Insurance companies have still sometimes denied that claim because they found they don't have a burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt to deny a claim. They feel that sometimes in certain circumstances, if the prosecutors have enough evidence to not only charge, but take all the way to trial and spend that time and resource on convicting this person of murder, the prosecutors believe that that person murdered the insured. Therefore, the insurance company is allowed to take that word and say, it meets our burden of proof, it meets our line, it meets what we need and our standard to deny a claim. And a lot of times they've denied the claim just with enough evidence to prosecute somebody, not convict them, because every burden is different, which is why we say in criminal cases, the highest burden in all the land, beyond a reasonable doubt. Not more likely than not preponderance of the evidence, not greater weight of the evidence, and definitely not the same amount of proof that you need just to deny an insurance claim. So that's why it's really important, and all this stuff happens not just in a vacuum, but there are multiple different factors that are pulled into play whenever a life insurance claim is open. Now, none of that necessarily had to happen in this case because Lori Vallow was not the primary beneficiary when Charles Vallow passed away. But if he were, you better believe they'd be looking into this criminal prosecution. And just a quick mention, other things that can come up in investigations, just for your edification, when somebody's investigating a life insurance claim, if you commit suicide, usually within the first 2 years, that voids your life insurance policy, but usually they'll refund all the premiums so you didn't lose out on money on something they weren't going to cover you for anyways. And additionally, if you lie on your insurance policy and you say, I'm in perfect health, or you doctor some medical records, then you die of a heart attack, that the life insurance company should have known about and taken that risk into account when and whether or not they were going to give you a life insurance policy, you can have your claim voided if you lie or doctor any evidence or doctor any records to make you seem more healthy than you were, or obviously committing insurance fraud on this life insurance company. They're allowed to deny those claims. And just like the Murdaugh case, he's trying to commit insurance fraud every way he possibly can. So they're finding all different ways to deny his claims. But they can deny life insurance claims. Just because somebody dies does not mean that policy is going to pay out. And it definitely doesn't mean it's going to pay out to the first person you think as the primary beneficiary if you are involved in the death of the insured in that life insurance policy. So as always, we want to let you guys know what your rights are in these situations if they come up in your life, but we also want to know what you think of these high-profile cases, because you could be jurors in cases like those, we could be lawyers in cases like those, and we can learn a lot from each other in this community. So if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to our page and like this video if you like the content on Vallow and Daybell. But for now, that's all we've got. We'll be with you next time. Thanks for watching this episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you like this content, please share it with your friends. Make sure you subscribe to our page and like our videos. If you want some interaction, get in the comments and we'll be sure to get back to you. If you want to know any more information about our firm or this page, you can find out in the description or visit tragoslaw.com. We post multiple times throughout the week, so make sure you hit that bell so you can get the notification and not miss out on the next episode.